see the frost and stuff build up on the ground. They say it's supposed to snow still, potentially. We'll see. Alright, well, what's going on today? Seems like everything I read related to money. How about the first one? This one here says, Vancouver Value Village finds $85,000 in accidentally donated cash. Imagine that. It says staff at Vancouver Value Village were dumbfounded this week when they discovered a donated bag containing a large sum of cash that was accidentally included. Store manager Jeffrey Stonehouse said as soon as the money was found, their company policy required them to tally it and call the police. It was in excess of $85,000, Stonehouse said, explaining usually when cash is found within donated clothing, it doesn't add up to more than pocket change. He said the money was in the form of very old bills, the most recent of which was from 1988. Stonehouse also said that with the cash, there were documents and pointed back to the presumed owner. So apparently it led back to an elderly woman because they brought it to the police and they found out, I guess. And it says her family was cleaning out an old storage locker and decided to donate some items to the thrift store when they unknowingly donated a bag containing the cash, police said in an emailed statement. The family is in the process of determining the power of attorney. The cash will be returned to the family once that is sorted out. So that's good to know that it was returned. I know your first reaction would probably be, oh, it's drug money. I know my mom said my grandparents used to always stash a lot of cash like that because they were too lazy to go to the bank or whatever. Maybe it was the same thing. Makes me wonder, are those bills actually worth more money since they're older? Although I would assume it has to be in mint condition for it to have extreme value. And the other topic in terms of money, I think a lot of people could see in many cases when it comes to things like drone safety and regulations, it seems like it's actually not so much about safety, but just making money out of it, selling things like courses and all that. And it's kind of interesting because you would think for the majority of the public, just based on what you see with the news and stuff like that, they would be for it, they promote it. But every time I see ads and stuff for drone schools or training or even like Transport Canada encouraging registration, it seems like people are really cynical over it and they're very distrusting. So I saw this one today. This one says, effective June 1/19, the government of Canada requires training for everyone operating drones, UAVs heavier than 250 grams. So they're basically advertising things like their courses and stuff like that for people to buy. And as usual, it'll be interesting just to read what are people's reactions of it. So the first comment here that I saw, it says, another cash grab from the government. It's interesting in general just to see average public people, I guess you could say, have this type of mentality towards things like this. And the company response was kind of interesting too. It says here, Happy New Year! Serious concern for drone safety started to occur in 2016 when a drone hit an airplane. There have been several other cases as well where drones have been flying at airports, endangering lives. One of the new rules is to stay 5 nautical miles away from airports and 1 nautical mile away from heliports. The maximum height is 400 feet. The online Transport Canada test for certification is $10. Drone hitting an airplane, huh? Are you talking about that one where nothing was actually found in a tangible way? But hey, I actually know one that actually did crash with tangible evidence. The RCMP one crashing into the helicopter. To me, that's concerning because I would say, for example, like in this area, when I actually see ethically questionable drone flight schools and stuff like that, if that's what you want to call them, it seems like they all use the same type of examples like this one here, where there was actually no 100% tangible proof it was a drone. It seems like people just latched onto it, say, oh, something hit it or whatever, nothing was found. Yet this is the reasons why they say, yeah, it's so dangerous, that's why we need these regulations. If that's the case, why aren't drone schools and stuff, for example, all being investigated for that RCMP crashing into the helicopter? Real tangible example there, and I would assume they went through training and stuff like that. And it's kind of interesting reading more comments. Like this guy, he responds by saying that needs to be renewed every 2 years, implying you don't just do it once or whatever. And then the company responds saying, you just need to show that you are staying up to date with the rules. One way is to take the exam again. There might be other creative ways to demonstrate that. So I don't know if the person's saying that because they are unaware, or are they just trying to promote people to spend, I don't know, money on courses or whatever. And people just seem to be poking fun at it. Like this guy says, probably need training to push a lawnmower. And then this guy says, do you have a toaster operator courses too? I guess that's to apply to a lot of people they see for how many people use a drone. It seems really weird in terms of, I guess you could say, requiring extensive training for flying things like a toy, for example, just say between trees and all that. And then the company actually responds, says, hi Ken, we get your point. Most drones are very user-friendly to fly, which we love. Our courses teach mostly about the rules, airspace, right of way, weather, icing, etc. Okay, interesting point, because I always said in terms of a business, if you offer a service that's valuable or whatever, then be my guest, charge whatever you want. But that was basically kind of the thing that made me wonder, oh man, is this kind of like related to that topic? Remember how I said with all this focus on these drone schools and all that, where's all the mandatory requirements to make sure they're actually up to date and all that and they're giving people proper information? This seems to be a common response by a lot of people when they read stuff like this. Like here, this person just says, buy a Mavic Mini, 249 grams, no licensing or registration required. So they basically link to an article that talks about it on the Transport Canada site. And an interesting thing is though, they comment, like the actual company, it says, Jesse G, that is true as long as there are no additional attachments and you stay out of controlled airspace areas. You are also not allowed to fly above people. Have a happy new year. That's not really accurate, unless I'm reading it wrong and what he's saying is you don't put attachments to it which makes it over 250 grams, then you can't fly in controlled airspace? Or is he implying even with the Mini you can't fly in controlled airspace period? Because there's nothing there that says you can't fly in controlled airspace or things like over people. You just have to be safe, unless, like they said, it's restricted airspace, like that Class F restricted. So out of curiosity, I just quickly looked at some of their offerings to see, okay, well, what exactly do you guys teach and for how much? And looking at this first, you can see it says basic drone operations, advanced drone operations, and this is an online training. And it says here, $90 for basic, $385 for the advanced. I'm not sure if their online training is just, for example, all preset information, because for the most part, to my knowledge, most people, all they do is just take regurgitated content, like literally, from the Transport Canada site, the Canadian aviation regulations, and they just post it, I guess, in a different wording. Like maybe they teach it differently, but to me, that's personally expensive, but it's not for me to say. They're a business, they can charge what they want. If someone finds value in it, then be my guest, so to speak. Now seeing their other offerings here, it says here, advanced drone operations classroom training, $600. That type of service I could actually see it's more justified, like just in my personal opinion. You're actually sitting there taking your time, giving people one-on-one guidance or whatever. It'll be no difference than, let's just say, a driving school, in my opinion, where you take the person in your car or whatever, you're driving around. That would be a little bit more justified in my opinion, as opposed to just regurgitated content, like a copy and paste job, so to speak, in a lot of cases. Because even for things like flight review, like I said, for a lot of people, their prep material is just read what the flight reviewer had to do to pass their test. Okay there. And then the other one says, practical drone flying experience, $250. Training to teach you how to fly your drone. I mean, to each their own. In my opinion, it's better to get out there and actually try it. I mean, $250? How many people will actually spend that much money just to fly something for fun, for example, just like below tree lines? But in terms of information again, like I wonder whether or not they were completely informed about, like say, the micro drones, because this one says they're offering custom drone operations manual, $1,200. $1,200, what are you offering? It says here, having a drone operations manual is a government requirement. Having our team put together a custom manual for your drone's operation. What in the world? By manual, do you mean the actual drone manual? Because it's supposed to be a requirement where you have the manufacturer's manual as an example, that tells you everything for the maintenance and all that. So if it's like a DJI drone, you could have that on hand, either I guess paper copy or digitally, like a PDF. Or are you referencing in terms of manual, kind of like your operating procedures? Because if you're saying, for example, manual as in the drone, man, it's that kind of misleading in my opinion. $1,200 to come up with that? And in terms of things like your operating procedures and all that, I mean, it's not mandatory in terms of a law requirement to have, I'm just using an example, 100 pages of stacked papers on how you actually do your operations and how you go about with it. But to me, it's actually just really interesting to see in terms of the general public perception in that case, where a lot of people are seeing it as is, where it's, oh my goodness, you're trying to charge people hundreds of dollars to do this. Because I mentioned before, that's actually my experience when you talk to the general public outside. If you say like, this is the regulations like this, people actually say to me, they're like, yeah, right, this is about safety or whatever. They just want to try to make it as difficult as possible for you guys so you don't use it. People actually say that, like regular people who don't use a drone. Maybe it's just because during this time, a lot of people are on edge and stuff like that with I don't know, lockdowns and all that, so they're more cynical about government-related stuff. But still, it's just kind of fascinating to see. I said it before, if you run a business, then be my guest, charge whatever you want if you think whatever you offer has value and all that. But if you're someone who's using fear-mongering techniques, kind of misleading people in many ways to encourage over-the-top regulations or to justify it, in my opinion, that's plain selfish. Alright, see you guys later.